and I'm your host, Dr. Sunny. It's time for our Dream Team segment where I get to talk with aspiring entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and others who are inspiring and impacting their community while making their dreams come true. As some of you know, I'm a certified coach, speaker, and trainer with the John Maxwell team. John Maxwell is a New York Times best-selling author. His philosophy is everything rises and falls on leadership, and he's written over 100 books on leadership and communications. I do workshops on those books, and including one that is called Put Your Dream to the Test. Today's guest has been putting his dream to the test for more than 5 decades. Some call him a hero. Some call him a trailblazer. But for over 57 years, thousands of Mississippians have called him their doctor. His courage, risking his life when he was a founder of an organization which became the medical arm of the civil rights movement, is documented in a book. It's called The Good Doctors. And today, this good doctor, Robert Smith, is here. He is Executive Director of the Central Mississippi Health Services Incorporated, and we welcome you to the show to rise and shine with us. Hello, Dr. Smith.
Thank you. Good morning to you, Dr. Fridge.
Oh, tell us a little bit about growing up in Mississippi. I understand you grew up in Terry on a cattle farm, raising cattle.
Yeah, my farm was really comprehensive. It grew cattle with cotton and corn and just a whole bunch of stuff that really dates back to the 1800s when my grandfather actually escaped slavery and got in a dispute with his boss and thought he was headed north and the train was headed south and he got off in Terry hungry. And so that's the beginning of the Smith farm. But the most important thing, there's nobody in my life more important than my daddy, but Joe, but I had a brother, a twin brother named Samuel, who thought that I shouldn't plow, shouldn't hook up a mule, and trained me in raising livestock. And so I was fortunate from 8 or 10 years old to start raising prize livestock. And I was one of the first young boys in Hinds County, black, to raise polled Herefords and become a champion in the 4-H club. And from that on to a trip to Washington way back when I was a kid in beginning high school.
Wow. So you've also received numerous awards. I guess it started with being a young boy and you started becoming a leader. But you've gotten a lot of awards as a medical pioneer, your courage for risking your life as a civil rights activist. What point in your life growing up did you realize that medicine was your calling?
Because my uncle and Minnie Porter had given me a book on famous black Americans, and one of those people there was Charles Drew. And I started saying 4th or 5th grade that I was going to be a physician.
Wow. That's pretty cool. So he was one of your heroes.
Charles Drew, right. Well, Initially, Dean Dixon, the pianist, the guy who was first supposed to direct New York or Philadelphia Philharmonic Orchestra. That's who my first idol was. Mm-hmm. But my playmates convinced me. Halbert and Robert and Lee Alfred Brinson convinced me that, boy, you don't have no musical talent.
Well, thank God you did have some talent with your skills, and you did well enough in school. Talk about your transition, getting into the medical field. Where did you get your degrees?
Every day, from Terry to Utica Institute, which was Heinz AHS.
Okay.
And then, of course, I headed my class there and then went on to Tulu and took a full-time job and went to college, took a major in chemistry. And, of course, by early decision process, was invited to come to Howard. And at that time, I had, because of my work with the 4-H Club and New Farmers of America, had lived on the campus of Howard. And even if University of Mississippi had been available, I wanted to go back to Howard University.
Made a difference that you visited there.
That I had visited there. I had lived on the campus of Howard as a high school and reunited myself with Medgar Evers, who I had known since college, and joined the movement.
Talk a little bit more about that. I
Well,
understand that you really got involved, and that's where a lot of the impact happened.
It was the most important experience. It's one of the most important experiences of my life, joining the movement, because I realized then Mississippi had really gone back in time. I got out of medical school thinking that I was a welcome member of the medical profession, and got back to Mississippi and found that blacks couldn't have full hospital privileges. There was areas where blacks couldn't obtain medical care. In addition to the civil rights stuff, I'm talking about people like you and me, down to Terry. I went home to Terry, climbed back up in the same bed that I grew up in, and people would just come. They would come. They would call my mother. Says, Robert home. You follow me? These are people who had taught me in grammar school and grade school, and people who just needed a doctor.
Right.
It was just that bad. Or didn't trust the medical care. I was sensitized to that. I joined people here like Dr. Britton, who was carrying a heavy load. There was Dr. Miller. They were carrying a tremendous load. There was 3 or 4 other doctors here that names escape me, but who had been isolated, couldn't practice in the hospitals, could only practice office care, and was just doing the best they could to serve people. But they were my age then, most of those people. Dr. Britton was a little younger, a very active guy who was a very sensitive guy who was involved, not only a good physician, but was involved in the movement.
I think he was Medgar Evers'
He
physician.
was Medgar Evers' physician, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, Medgar Evers' physician, yeah. But the important thing for me is when I learned that I had been drafted back to Mississippi because of racial discrimination, and when I learned that I couldn't practice, then the meaning of the movement became more and more important. And I shall never forget, I had been invited to the home of Dr. and Mrs. Thelma Sanders, who had a repast for Medgar the night that he was killed. I was called back that morning for a morning party at their home. And later, within 2 weeks, the American Medical Association was meeting in Atlantic City. And if you'll notice on the Good Doctors, the NMA, the 3 of us belonged to the National Medical Association, which was the black arm of the AMA. And we wanted to make a statement. And we went to and took on the American Medical Association, delivered them a petition that they should come out unequivocally against discrimination of the black patient and the black physician, and of course was thrown out of the House of Delegates, expected to go to jail, but I always was fortunate enough to have enough traveler's checks to get me out of jail, because my daddy told me, that's one thing he told me. He says, now Robert, I'm not going to hawk my land to get you out of jail.
Right.
He told me that in advance. And so, but the important thing is, between John L.S. Holloman and Walter Lear, these were physicians. We went on, ended up front page, New York Times front page on the major networks. And of course, my life got turned upside down.
And in what ways?
Last week.
Wow, awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that history, especially during Black History Month and just American history as well. And that's all the time that we have on this edition of Rise and Shine with Dr. Sunny. I'd like to thank my guest, Dr. Robert Smith, as well as our Home Matters segment guest, Chad Wright of Movement Mortgage. To my listeners, thank you for joining us on Facebook Live as well. And if you'd like to be a guest or a sponsor, go to our Facebook page, Rise and Shine with Dr. Sunny. Be sure to tune in next week, and we're going to leave you with the song Stand Up for Something by Andra Day and Common. I'm Dr. Sunny in Century 21, Mazzell and Associates, and the John Maxwell team, reminding you 2018 is your time to rise and shine and live your dream. Have a great day, everybody.